You're listening to The Brand Compass, conversations to navigate your way to building a brand fit for purpose and poised for success. Here's your host, 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦.
Hello, my friend, and thank you for choosing to listen to us today. Time is precious, and I really do appreciate your ear. This is the show where we have some deep chats in the hallways about where your brand meets the humans you serve. I'm 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗏, and I am your host on this journey, and I am chomping at the bit to get into our topic today, which is all about how it is possible to transition from a service-based business to a product-based one. So I'm really chuffed to welcome my guest today, who will be my conversation companion, and that is Tracey Powiesnik, or Tracey P, as her friends call her. Tracey is a long-time friend and true powerhouse of a lady. Now, there's a bit of background as to why I have invited her specifically for this conversation. Because up until a few years ago, she was mainly a service provider. But in 2019, she actually invented, designed, and manufactured a completely different product unrelated to her service and brought that to market. So we're really lucky to have her come and chat to us today because she's generally run off her feet most of the time. So let's give you the background to Tracey so you can get a feel for the context of bringing her into this conversation, and then we can jump right into the topic. So Tracey hails from a background running her L&D consultancy and training business, working with individuals and teams from businesses in hospitality, education, and also in professional institutions. Her specialism is in using emotional intelligence frameworks to drive engagement and maximize performance. However, in 2019, just before the pandemic hit, she came up with an idea for a product that she just couldn't find on the market. So she set about designing it, building a prototype, and today the product is out there in the marketplace. How exciting is that? But I'll let her tell you a bit more about that. So Tracey's married to Charles, has 3 adult children, and 2 grandchildren. Wow. Okay. Welcome, Tracey. Hey.
Whoa. Thank you, 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
No, it's all right. That's a lot of achievements all in one package that is Tracey P. Shall we kick off the conversation by asking you what we all really want to know more about, and that is what it is actually like inventing and creating a physical product?
Wow. Well, if I had to just use 2 words, I'd say exciting and scary, probably in equal measures. But no, it's been the most amazing journey. It really has. There's a lot of self-doubt that comes along the way. You know, you do start to question yourself and think, actually, you know, is there a reason this product isn't out there? Is it because nobody really wants it? And that is even more so the case as you're going through the process. Yeah. It's really daunting because you touch the product so much as well that it starts to become very ordinary. And then there's that anticipation of, actually, when this lands into people's hands, what are they really going to think?
Should we tell people what the product is that are listening? Because
should we do that? Should we do that?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So tell us what happened.
Okay, so how this journey started. We got our very first dog, and as you said in the intro, and thank you, it was a lovely intro, I feel very flattered, but as you said in the intro, I was busy delivering training courses to teams, you know, up and down and around the country, so usually very smartly dressed. We suddenly decided to welcome a puppy into our house. There were lots of people who knew me who said I was a bit of a neat freak and a perfectionist, and like, how's that going to work with a dog? I was like, we'll be fine. And I have to say, that did challenge that neat freakness part of me. You have a dog, you know what that's like. But one of the biggest things that I really wanted to do with our new puppy was to incorporate enrichment toys into his world.
What kind of dog was it? Because some dogs are more prone.
Yeah, so he was a cockapoo. His name was 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦.
Yes.
And we have Harvey, the Springer Spaniel as well now. So I wanted to incorporate these toys. And the reason for that, if your listeners or anybody watching hasn't heard about enrichment toys, the idea is that you deliver your dog's food or treats in an enrichment toy, because, as the word sort of really suggests, it makes the whole process more enriching for them. There's a big movement towards sort of ditching the bowl, because the bowl, you know, your food just gets dished up every day.
Yeah, my
for
dog
dogs,
gets
that's not
really
their
bored.
natural thing. Yeah, exactly. So you can pop it into something exciting. Now, these enrichment toys, there are hundreds of them on the market, but they're notoriously tricky to fill, because obviously they've got little holes for dogs to get their tongues into, which is great for dogs, but it's not brilliant when you're dressed up, ready to go and deliver a training course, and you're trying to spoon food in. And I, you know, started this process and I thought, crumbs, there's got to be an easier way to get dog food into these toys. Also, because at times I was going out for sort of a morning or a day session, I'd have people coming in to take care of our dog. I'd be leaving these toys in the fridge ready for whoever was popping in. And then it was like, ooh, do I really want these rolling around in amongst my leftover, you know, lasagna from the night before? So some ideas started, the cogs started to go. It's like, how can I make this easier? How can I make things, you know, quicker for myself? And I came up with an idea for how I could fill these toys quite early on, and I was like, you know what, there's got to be a way. And I tried lots of different things, was cobbling things together in my kitchen, and I have to admit, I think I've reached a certain age. I said to my parents, I've got an idea, and it was my mum who turned around and she said, is this going to be another one of your ideas that you talk about and you don't do anything with? And it was like, oh, that was like the biggest gauntlet thrown down on the ground. So I thought, no, you know what, I'm going to do this. But as I said, a really scary journey, because if I had absolutely no background in manufacturing, so it's like, well, where do I start? So effectively, God, yeah. You know, the no fuss fill is effectively a syringe, if you like, for delivering food quickly and easily without mess into a toy. Now that sounds really simple, but when you're looking at different viscosities of food, when you're looking at the range of food, dog food that's on the market, it's got to work with all of those products.
You've become a scientist.
And it's got to fit. You do.
And an engineer. You've become an engineer and a scientist.
Absolutely. And it was all of those things that I didn't have the background in. So it is incredibly scary, but so rewarding. You know, when you see the product in your customers' hands or in people's hands. And I don't know if you heard, but I've just been nominated
award-winning.
I know, as a finalist in the Pet Industry Federation.
I know.
Yeah. So the awards are next month, and I mean that makes it all makes it all worthwhile.
Worthwhile.
Really incredible.
Yeah. And I mean,
Yeah,
this whole bit is what we're going to dig into right now, because you and I are very much like curious business bunnies, right? So like whenever we talk to people, we generally jump to the business part of the conversation as opposed to So what I'm most curious about is, because most of our listeners are subject matter experts, micro businesses, all service-based businesses. Obviously, we'll have other listeners too. But yeah, I think what do you think was a good crossover, really, of experience that you were able to kind of draw on from that service-based business that actually served you well in helping to serve, create that product base?
I think the crossover for me was really my ability to build relationships with people. As somebody, as someone who, I still am, if you like, on my own, running No Fuss Fill, but I needed to very quickly sort of network and reach out. So it was that ability to, I guess, very quickly. Because I mean, the thing with the product development is, as soon as you start talking about it, and that's the other thing I would say, is that I knew that I needed to create an audience, and I can go on and talk to you about that in a bit. But I needed to create an audience. Yeah, but as soon as I started to create an audience and put other ideas out there, almost positioning the new product, it became very apparent to me that somebody else was potentially going to get the idea. So I think you have to move really, really quickly. So for me, it was being able to think on my feet. It was to have that problem solving skills, all of those things that I think you know, as you were saying, you have listeners who are running, well, a lot of them are running their own businesses. You have to really act really quickly. And I think being able to course correct and sort of look ahead and say, right, well, that was the plan, and then quickly readjust. So there were lots of crossover skills definitely that came, but I mean, there was some huge learning curves. Yeah, when interest
Yeah. So I think that's what I want to kind of chew into now, because now you can sit back and look back, right? And look at where your journey was. I mean, was there anything, and obviously it was a huge massive learning jump to manufacturing, right? So what would you say, if, you know, to Tracey, who was just starting out with the product, were there things that you felt like you could have done first, or you might have done something in a different order, or you should have just left alone and focused on, do you know what I mean? Like, what were your learnings now looking back?
I think my learnings, I think obviously I knew where I wanted the product to get to, but I think we all sort of say, well, we want it to be on the shelves at such and such a store, but that's not going to happen for a little while. And I think I probably should have, although I had those goals, I was probably unrealistic in my expectations for how quickly I'd get to them. Does that make sense? I don't know if I explain that correctly. But do you think I think.
Does that come with experience though? Like, because product stuff, it really is about learning how long those lead times are, and you know. It
wasn't so much the lead times; it was the time it took for it to get traction and be interested by other parties. That's what shocked me. So if I'm honest, I didn't have my ducks in a row. For example, retail is a really great one. So when I initially started out, when I was making these prototypes in my kitchen, remember, this was just for me. It's just so that I didn't get dog food all over the counter and do all of that. Then I had the gauntlet thrown down by my mum. You know, is this going to be an idea you have? And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I
like the way mum was the instigator of this business.
Sure, Then there was I'm just going to take this out to a B2C audience. I don't want to be in shops. And if I'm honest, it was because, I don't know what I'm doing about the shops. You know, how do I do that? You know, let me just stick at this. It was one thing at a time. So I think what I would, to get back to your question, is to have had that very, very big goal in mind, and to have worked out the strategic steps that needed to be get that, and to have been making those little incremental steps to that. Because what actually happened was the product launched. It took a while for the product to launch, I'll be honest. The product launched, the interest started to build, and then all of a sudden I was having retail inquiries, and I wasn't retail ready.
You weren't ready,
No. So all of a sudden, the packaging that was appropriate to be popped in a box and sent from me to a customer was fine, but I was being asked for packaging that was going onto shelves. And then when I thought, I've got that sussed, it was like, shit. You have got barcodes, haven't you? And I was like, yes, I've got barcodes, of course I would race off and do that. And then you've got
find out where I get one of those.
Exactly. And so I think, if you were in a bigger organisation, you'd have a team of people that would be doing all of these different jobs. So I think for me, I would say to everyone is build those networks, build a support team of people around you, know where you can go to, have some people that you can trust, so that you can outsource some of these things, like the design work and the packaging, and
But I think for us size businesses, right, 1 or 2 man businesses or under 10, right?
Yeah.
You may not have those people to hand, but like you say, it would be useful to have known, actually, I could have done with a product launch coach, or someone who knew packaging was going to be an issue for homes versus retail.
Absolutely. Absolutely. With no experience of that. It was, I think, the first time, and don't get me wrong, I'm pleased with my packaging. It was a case of, let's just get it out there. As I said at the beginning, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and there is that danger to hold on to something and hold on to it. But when you've got
to try. Like, if you don't try,
it's got to be out there.
Yeah.
So a lot of it I'm happy with and it works. But I mean, the first time I was invited to go down and do a demonstration in a store where my products were, and it was like, I walked in, it was like, this is a proper grown-up store, with customers, and this is amazing. And then I looked across and I could see mine on the shelves. And I think as a business owner, you're always going to be the biggest critic. Customers and store owners said packaging looks great, but I thought, oh, could have done better.
Oh, could have done that. Could have done that.
Yeah.
Oh no. And I mean that nicely brings on to, I think, what I am interested in, but which people hopefully are also interested in listening, is that, okay, I don't have a lot of experience in terms of marketing products because I focus on service-based businesses, but I'm guessing that getting that real life feedback and input from the end user of the product is probably even more so important than it is for service-based businesses. So are you happy to share a few ways that you managed to actually get that? And I think you have some famous people with famous dogs that you might
I might have, yes. So
whatever you're allowed to share,
so, exactly. So the feedback for the product had to start really early on. There was, before I pressed the go button. Is
that around the prototype time?
Yeah, around the prototype time. So so I really needed to have some people that could test the product prior to that. So if you like, it was at proof of concept stage.
Nice.
So for me, I think one of my followers, so thank you very much. I created an Instagram account. Started off, I just had my dog, had me, had no products. I had to borrow pictures of other people's dogs. Yes, I know, thank you. But it was really scary at the beginning because you was like, well, what could I talk to people about? As I said, I started off, I had the No Fuss Fill was the main product, hence the name of the business. And I thought, I've got to start talking to people about something. So created some products that could work well with it. Started to get those out, get people talking. Very nearly shot myself.
Created them, or sorry to interrupt. Created them or sourced them? Because this is the licky pads.
No, created them. No. So I created them.
You're creating more than one product.
I have more than one. So because the No Fuss Fill is about filling toys, and the challenge was it leaking in your fridge or being tricky to fill, I thought, well, you know what, I'll start with a rack, the prep rack as it's called, that can store these toys in the fridge so that they don't fall over. And again, this is another
practical application, neat freak.
Exactly. Thank you. But I very nearly shot myself in the foot with that. And this is another lesson to be had about a timeline for a journey launch, because I positioned that to attract the interest of the people that would then potentially be interested in the No Fuss Fill. But inadvertently, by doing that, what happened was they started buying it, these fantastic followers of mine. They were popping it onto Instagram and this amazing user-generated content. But what it was doing, it was making the actual filling of these toys look so cat-handed, which is really what I wanted, because I wanted to swoop in with my solution. But the time it took from me producing those products and people starting to create those videos, and for my product to come to market was a lot longer than I really anticipated it being, because that's the other thing, to bring a product to market takes that time. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm highlighting the challenge to other people. Somebody's going to get in there first. So that was a bit of a scary point in the business, when I thought, all I'm doing now is showing people how tricky it is to fill with a spoon. Quick, get the product out there. So coming back to the followers, I feel very lucky. I had a fantastic sort of following of people. But I have to say, if I go back to what we were talking about earlier about nurturing relationships, I've really got to know everybody. And I feel that, now I've got quite a lot of followers. Do I know all of them personally? No, but there's a really huge chunk who I view now as friends. And I think people often say to me, how did you do this? And I view it as if any of your listeners have a store, or they pay to go to an exhibition, or they go to a convention within their field. you wouldn't ignore anybody who walked up to you on your exhibition stand. You wouldn't ignore anyone who walked into your store. And so it's exactly the same. Anyone who has followed me has had a welcome, and they've had a personal welcome from me, and thank you for following. I've chatted about their dogs. It's taken a lot of time, but it's been lovely, and it's enabled me to get to know the followers. So when I came to the point of having prototypes, it was very, very easy for me to reach out to a selection of those followers and say, look, I'm launching a product. Would you be interested in testing? Those prototype testers then became true ambassadors, and now I see as real sort of advocates of the product. And you know, when I sort of gave them that release and said, actually, you can start talking about it now, you know, you can put some content out there if you like, just the response was incredible. I mean, there was one lady who was she's a behaviouralist and a dog trainer, popped something onto TikTok with 15,000 likes. I think there's something like 9 million views, and there were 238 comments that came in from the States. On the back of that...
Oh, crap. Are you ready for in global?
No, and that's the other thing. And that's when I say to you about, you know, be ready, because I hadn't anticipated what this would happen. And I think that's the thing with, you know, as we say, with social media, you're out there and you've got a global audience. So,
but I think what's really lovely there, Tracey, that you've highlighted is how important that building of community, especially in this day and age. You know, there's so much nonsense going on in the world. There's so much disingenuous stuff going on in the world. But the dog community is a really good community, I think, in general. I find, like, you know, the people are a lot friendlier, more open to conversation. They are a lot more curious. And I think they do want to help each other, because everyone knows it's almost like having kids, isn't it? Like, there's always struggles with your dog.
Right.
You know,
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Hey, you're not the only one. Mine's not quite as bouncy as yours.
Yes.
But I think what was a really lovely key learning there is to always build that community, and how I think that's really important. Even for service-based, it's still, like you say, those relationships, yes, in the beginning, it might take a lot of time, but honestly, the momentum and the traction you get from that going forward, like everybody's just like, oh, have you seen the No Fuss Phil? Have you seen Tracey?
And
you know,
I think that's the thing. Everybody's very. I mean, I really do feel very, very privileged and to have such amazing followers. And you know, people will say to me, you asked the question, do I have any famous people who bought No Fuss Phil? Yes, I do. Do I have any really top high flying influencers? Actually, do you know what? I think
it's dependent on what your definition of influencer
absolutely
is.
And that's what I was going to say. For me, it's about having, if you like, a core group of people, and this has happened organically really, that have similar values, who speak the same language as me, and who are open and sharing and caring. And that was what was more important for me. So those people have sort of like come into my life quite generically, and I've helped develop them as much as they've helped to develop me, and they've come back and said that they've given me a platform to be able to sort of talk about products. As I started to say,
good advocates for you are, like you said, you know, when we in my group program, we have a whole almost mini course within my group program all around these target audiences, and one of the audiences as we talk about are your advocate audiences. And this is the key thing, because Kim Kardashian to me is not an influencer, but that's because I'm not her audience. But it's very dependent on what you see as your, you know, who are your advocates. And I think great advocates for you are obviously, you know, the dog trainers, the behavioralists, the naturalists as well, the stuff that sits with your core values. But also, you know, it's just looking within your industry to go, actually, who are good people to know about the product firsthand. You know, and therefore, if you win them over, it's nothing for them to talk about you, because that word of mouth is still hugely valuable, isn't it?
Yeah, and I would not feel comfortable if I had somebody who was being paid, for example, to talk about my product and say it was great. That doesn't sit well with me. You know, I want people who genuinely want to use the product. Yes, I get people who reach out to me and say, do you want to send us a product and we'll do something nice about it? It's like, well, actually, I've already got a lot of people who've already bought it, have said what a game changer it is.
So if you'd like it, you're welcome to buy it and try it.
But do you know what?
That's really good though.
Because I think for me it's all about being authentic and genuine.
But I think you also past that point now. You've done your proof of concept. You know the product's good. You don't have to answer queries like that. And I think that's lovely.
Yeah. So when you was going back to that famous person, so when Deborah Messing from Will and Grace sends you a private DM.
Yeah, that's right.
How do I get one of these? I was like, I did a little happy dance around the office.
But that was really early on, wasn't it? Deborah Messing. That was really early on.
Yeah. And then I think if you saw on my Instagram, I had one of the current Strictly Come Dancing pros, Karen, who has 3 rescue dogs, and she came and saw me at Dogfest and said, I really want to have one of your No Fuss Feels, and she pre-ordered it. I had people pre-ordering it before. We built enough, if you like, excitement through social media that people pre-ordered. So wonderful. So where are you now in the business? Like, how are you? I know everything's still always chaotic, but I think you're on a different level of chaos now, where certain things are probably in place. But not where you want them to be, but I think you're far off better than you were 2 years ago. No, absolutely. I mean, I think everything has gone far quicker than I said. You know, when I put an initial business plan together, it was, 5 years, I might consider going into retail, but for now, it's like, okay, we're in retail. And I think that was really driven by, it's...
community.
It was driven by community. And demand, but also it's driven by investment that I had in tooling. Unfortunately, we're in a world, my product is protected to the hilt, but we're in a world where people will copy and do things. And it was being first to market, it was really a case of, one, that's very exciting, but two, it's like, let's just get it out there. And so when the interest was coming, and the reason retail started was because I was having interest from around the world, which sounds really scary now. I've actually got a scratch off map. And so it was like, I can't service all of those people, or it would be challenging for me to service those people here from the UK with just one. But if I get it onto a wholesale market and have retailers in these other countries, which is what I have now.
So we could have another episode just on logistics and globalization.
Don't even talk about export.
God, that's another conversation. I mean, are you doing a lot of the service-based stuff still? Are you still doing that business, or are you too excited now? Are you like,
well,
I'm leaving this other world. I'm like absorbed.
It's a really funny one. I for a long while on LinkedIn, I kept one profile up, and I was like, at what point do I go, I've got a dog business now? And that's a really, I think that's an interesting one. It is. It's like, do you wear 2 hats? Does wearing 2 hats dilute your if you like? I
mean, we need to have a conversation off this episode all about that, don't we? Because we actually haven't looked at your business in a while, because you've been in testing mode and manufacturing and selling. But I think for everybody listening, I think that's a big challenge for everybody, isn't it? Like, what if I have my fingers in a few different pots, and what if they're completely unrelated pots? How the heck do I deal with that? But I would say there is a way to do it, because just think about it going forward now. And I've been listening to quite a bit of like Simon Sinek's content lately, is our world has changed. So you almost have a portfolio career now, no matter what age you are, because it used to be only when you were set out to posture and you became a non-exec of a directing of a company. But now that's not true, actually. Younger and younger now, you have a portfolio. So like, it's almost like, how do you do it in a way that's authentic to you? But also, like you say, you don't want to mix your messaging. You don't want to confuse your audience. Like, what is this person doing?
So to answer that question, without a doubt, No Fuss Feel is taking the majority of my time. But so I'm not actively looking for business for the other business. However, I have, and there's one particular client that I've worked with for a particularly long while. I love working with, and it's interesting. I think I bring something different to that business now, having gone through this. So I can bring a lot of insight different now examples
as well.
So,
but I think also there's never really an end an end point, because the thing is, you have evolved as an entrepreneur, and we will just let everybody know that you have actually won an award as a female entrepreneur.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you want to just tell us? Is that 𝗧𝗛𝗓𝗏𝗦? So
it was. So I won the Woman Who Award. So Sandra runs, and it's national now. So she's national awards, and she's different categories. And I was nominated for the Woman Who Achieves in Retail. I got my certificate on the wall, in Retail and Products. And yeah, it was. I have to say that if I could leave your listeners with anything, it's that whole process. You know, being nominated. The person who nominated me kept saying, "Have you completed the form yet? Have you completed the form?" It's like, "No, I'm too busy. I'm too busy." But do you know what? Well, and that was the trouble. It takes time to complete these things. But just the process of completing it and writing down and actually taking that time to reflect on the journey that I'd been on was incredible. And that was one of the things I would say to anybody is document your journey, or take that time to look back and reflect. And I mean, it's a bit when you read the little bit at the beginning, I was like, oh, she's talking about me.
Is that me?
Because you get so tied up in the business that well, personally, I haven't taken the time to stop and reflect and think, well, look, where have I come from? You know, I didn't even know what half of the words, spark eroding. You know, who knew what that term was? I know about spark eroding in manufacturing now, and this, I've had to learn a whole new language.
My goodness.
So, yeah.
Oh, no, that's brilliant. Have you got any, because while we're busy recording now in October 2022, so obviously if anybody listens to us after that, it's not going to be relevant, but are there any particular big events that you go to that is coming up maybe in the next year or so that you're going to, that maybe people could come and see you?
Yeah, well, definitely that's already in the book. I'm on the books I'm at Edition Dog Live, which will be at Stoneleigh, which is fairly local to where we are, which is quite nice. And that is
what's it called? Dog Edition.
Edition Dog. Edition Dog.
Oh, Edition Dog.
So Edition Dog is a magazine, it's a publication, and they're having a live event. So this will be my second time attending there. I'll probably be attending some of the dog fests next year as well, which are national.
I didn't even know about this world other than Crufts, right? So I'm like,
well, there you go. Well, I do you know what? I went to Crufts last year and I had a look, and I think
it's quite high end, isn't it? Well, I haven't actually been, so
I think it's looking at it comes back. It's about choosing your niche. And I think it's looking at where your customers hang out. And for sure, they're at Crufts. But I know that my particular niche will spend more of their time at those other events. So I will be there. I was there last year. I had 2 days. I set up a competition. I hid the knobs that go on the end of my No Fuss Feel around Crufts. And people had to find them. And I set up an Instagram challenge. And so they had to find all 3 colours. And then they
that's gonna feed into the geocachers out there, right? The ones who like to find impression. Just like dogs. Nice. I mean, God, we could just talk forever, couldn't we? So I've had so much fun chatting to you today, Tracey. But so we talked about where they can find you in real life, but is there anywhere that you'd like to direct people to find out more about No Fuss Feel?
Sure, thank you for that. So obviously website, which is www.nofussfeel.com, and if you hop on to Instagram and any of the socials, it's again same name, No Fuss Feel, and that's where you get to see the products showcased, and you get to see my fabulous followers with their brilliant user-generated content. Which
and lots me
with huge pride. Yeah,
and you're very good at your reels and your practical, application of things. I love watching your content. It's brilliant.
Again, huge learning curve.
But it all works. Thank you so much for joining me today, Tracey.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. It's been so long since we had a good chat like that, so I always come away like really energized when I spend time with you, because you're just a really superb role model for female entrepreneurs, and your genius and your light is much needed in the world, so please continue.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you. That's it for this episode, folks. Thank you so much for choosing to listen to us today. So I don't know about you, but this episode has just filled up my cup of joy. I don't know what you think, but I just want to go and design something now, scarily enough. Now, who do you know that could do with listening to Tracey's story today? So please do go and share this episode. You know you want to. So until next time, Stay strong, believe you have value, and make good brand decisions.
Thank you for listening to The Brand Compass. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with your entrepreneurial friends and help them make good brand decisions. Until next time, let's keep the conversation going at 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏